Hi, it's Frank, and this is the commercial driver's license test for Missouri. It is a requirement for anyone regardless of the type of commercial vehicle they intend to drive. So I will cover the core knowledge all CMV operators must possess, including safe driving practices, vehicle inspection, basic air brake and cargo handling rules, and general traffic laws. Let's get started. What is the first thing you should do if your vehicle catches fire while driving? Get off the road, stop, and call for help. The immediate priority is to safely pull over, stop the vehicle, and contact emergency services before attempting to fight the fire. Let's continue. What is the minimum number of tie downs required for any piece of cargo, regardless of its length? 2. Even for short cargo, a minimum of 2 tie downs are required to prevent movement, one near the front and one near the rear of the cargo. Moving on, you must stop and check the security of your cargo within the first how many miles of a trip? 50 miles. This initial check is required because cargo often settles during the first part of a trip, potentially loosening the tie downs. Time for the next question. Which of these is a sign of steering system defect that you should inspect? Excessive free play in the steering wheel. If the steering wheel moves more than 10 degrees, which is about 2 inches on a 20-inch wheel, without the front wheels moving, it indicates excessive play. Next up, how far ahead should a driver look while driving a commercial motor vehicle? 12 to 15 seconds. This distance provides time to spot hazards, assess the situation, and take necessary action, which is vital for heavy vehicles. Let's continue. What is the purpose of the low air pressure warning signal in an air brake system? To alert the driver when the air pressure drops below 60 psi. The warning signal activates when the pressure falls below the safe operating minimum, signaling the need to stop immediately. Moving on. If you are being tailgated, you should increase your following distance to allow the vehicle behind you more space to stop. By increasing your distance from the vehicle ahead, you provide a larger cushion that allows the tailgater more time to react if you have to slow down. Time for the next question. What is the minimum tread depth required for front tires on a commercial vehicle? 432-inch. Federal regulations require the steering axle front tires to have a minimum tread depth of 430 for safety and steering control. Next up, the total stopping distance for a commercial vehicle equals perception distance plus reaction distance plus what? Braking distance. Total stopping distance is the sum of the time it takes to see the hazard, perception, the time to physically respond, reaction, and the time it takes the brakes to stop the vehicle, braking. Let's continue. If you are driving a heavy vehicle and need to exit a highway using a ramp that curves downhill, you should slow down to a safe speed before the curve. Braking on a curve, especially downhill, increases the risk of skidding or rolling over. Always slow down before entering the curve. Moving on. What does a tire load rating tell you? The maximum safe weight the tire can carry. The load rating is essential for ensuring your tires are not overloaded, which could lead to tire failure and loss of control. Time for the next question. Why is wet road ice more dangerous than black ice? Wet road ice is not a real term. Black ice is the most dangerous. The term wet road ice is not a standard safety term. Black ice is the most dangerous because it is thin, clear, and difficult to see. Next up, what is the correct way to use the emergency brake during a trailer or heavy vehicle skid? Do not use the parking or emergency brake. Using the emergency or parking brake on a trailer or heavy vehicle during a skid will likely worsen the skid or cause a jackknife. Let's continue. What should you do if your vehicle's tires hydroplane? Release the accelerator and push in the clutch. Take your foot off the gas and don't touch the brakes. This allows the wheels to slow down so the tire treads can regain contact with the road. Moving on. What is countersteering? Turning the steering wheel back in the opposite direction after steering to correct a skid. Countersteering is the essential second step in skid correction, where you turn the wheel back to straighten the vehicle and prevent a new skid. Time for the next question. Which two lights must be used when an oversized load is being hauled? Headlights and hazard lights. Oversized loads must use both headlights for visibility and hazard warning lights to signal a non-standard situation to other drivers. Next up, How often must commercial drivers stop to rest during a long trip according to safety guidelines? Every few hours or when tired. While specific legal requirements exist for driving hours, general safety guidelines recommend stopping to rest frequently, regardless of the clock, if fatigue is felt. Let's continue. Which classification of fire extinguisher is best for electrical fires? Class C. Class C extinguishers are rated for involving energized electrical equipment. Using a water extinguisher on an electrical fire is extremely dangerous. Moving on. When conducting a pre-trip inspection, why should you check the oil level? To ensure there is enough oil to prevent engine damage. Insufficient oil can lead to overheating, friction, and catastrophic engine failure. Time for the next question. What is the minimum fine for operating a CMV without the proper CDL or while disqualified? $2,500. Federal and state laws impose severe financial penalties for driving a commercial motor vehicle, CMV, without the correct license or while disqualified. Next up, if you have a two-speed rear axle, when should you shift the two-speed axle? While going slowly and firmly depressing the accelerator. The two-speed axle is shifted by a dash control while you apply the accelerator slightly, but only after you have slowed down to a low speed. Let's continue. What is the most important reason for inspecting your vehicle before a trip? To prevent a crash or breakdown. A pre-trip inspection is the best defense against mechanical failures that could lead to a serious accident or delay. Moving on. What is the proper color for marker lights on the front of a commercial vehicle? Amber. Federal regulations specify that all identification and clearance lights visible from the front of the vehicle must be amber, yellowish orange. Time for the next question. What should you do before backing a CMV? Get out and check all around the vehicle. Always GOL, get out and look to check clearances, obstacles, and blind spots, as CMVs have large blind spots when backing. Next up, what is the primary cause of commercial vehicle crashes? Driver error. The vast majority of CMV accidents are preventable and attributed to mistakes or poor judgment by the driver, such as speeding or distraction. Let's continue. What is the purpose of the safety release valve in an air brake system? To protect the tank from too much pressure. This valve automatically releases air pressure if it builds up too high, usually around 150 psi, preventing tank rupture. Moving on, how do you correct a drive wheel braking skid? Stop braking, turn quickly, and counter steer. Release the brakes completely to regain steering control, steer into the skid to correct the path, and then counter steer to straighten out. Time for the next question. What is the legal maximum blood alcohol concentration, BAC, for commercial drivers operating a CMV? 0.04%. The legal limit for CDL holders is significantly lower than for non-commercial drivers, and a measurement of 0.4% or greater results in a CDL disqualification. Next up, what is the danger of letting brake drums or discs get very hot? Brakes can fade or fail. Excessive heat causes the braking components to lose effectiveness, brake fade, and can even lead to total brake failure. Let's continue. Why should you look for bleeding tar on the road during hot weather? Tar can soften and make the road slippery. In hot weather, the tar can rise to the road's surface and soften, creating a condition similar to black ice that can reduce tire traction. Moving on. What should you use to check for a damaged or bent axle suspension system during a walk-around inspection? Look for cracked or broken springs, hangers, and other components. Visual inspection is used to spot obvious physical damage like broken leaf springs, damaged U-bolts, or cracked axle housing. Time for the next question. When driving in fog, you should use your low-beam headlights. High beams reflect off the fog and worsen visibility. Low beams shine downward, providing the best available light without glare. Next up, when driving in very cold weather, what should you watch for in air brake systems? Ice in the air brake lines. Just moisture in the air system can freeze in the lines, which can block airflow and prevent the brakes from working. Let's continue. What is the key to preventing a rollover? Keep your speed down around turns. Since heavy vehicles have a high center of gravity, the most effective way to prevent a rollover is to reduce speed significantly before entering a curve. Moving on, what is controlled braking? Applying the brakes as hard as possible without locking the wheels. Gosh. Controlled braking is a technique used to slow down quickly while maintaining steering control by avoiding wheel lockup. Time for the next question. What is the term for the space around your vehicle that you need to keep clear? Space cushion. A space cushion is the minimum safe following distance and surrounding space necessary to allow a driver to stop, swerve, or take other evasive action. Next up, what is the correct hand position on the steering wheel? 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock or 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. These positions give you the best control and leverage over the wheel, especially in an emergency. Let's continue. If you are involved in an accident, what is the first thing you should do? Protect the area. The immediate first step is to prevent further accidents by setting out warning devices, turning on flashers, and moving vehicles if necessary and safe. Moving on. Why is it important to know your vehicle's height clearance? To avoid hitting overhead structures like bridges or overpasses, you must know the exact height of your vehicle to prevent a collision with low bridges, tunnels, and other overhead structures. Time for the next question. What should you never do when a vehicle is skidding? Steer and brake sharply. Braking or steering sharply will only make a skid worse and can cause a loss of control or a rollover. Next up, if you lose hydraulic pressure when driving, what is the first thing you should do? Pump the brakes to restore pressure. Pumping the pedal may build up enough pressure for 1 or 2 stops. If that fails, downshift and use the parking brake slowly. Let's continue. What is black ice? A thin layer of ice on the road that is hard to see. Black ice forms when moisture freezes on the road surface, blending with the color of the pavement and making it nearly invisible and extremely dangerous. Moving on. What is an exemption to the rule about carrying hazardous materials in a commercial vehicle? Materials needed for the safe operation of the vehicle or personal use. Small quantities of materials necessary for the vehicle's safe operation, like fire extinguishers, or personal use, like medicine, are generally exempt from hazmat regulations. Time for the next question. Why should you use block steering, push-pull, instead of hand-over-hand steering? It reduces the chance of injury if the airbag deploys. The push-pull technique keeps your hands lower on the wheel and reduces the risk of your arms being injured if the steering wheel airbag deploys during a crash. Next up, how does loading a vehicle's cargo high affect its center of gravity? It makes the vehicle less stable and more likely to roll over. A higher center of gravity increases the effects of centrifugal force on curves, making the vehicle much more susceptible to tipping. Let's continue. When should you downshift an automatic transmission? Before starting down a grade. You should downshift before beginning a steep descent to allow the engine to provide braking power and prevent the service brakes from overheating. Moving on. What is the danger of using the service brakes too much on a long downhill grade? Brake fade. Excessive use causes heat buildup, which reduces braking effectiveness, fade, and can lead to total brake failure. Time for the next question. What does it mean to be a defensive driver? To expect mistakes from others and be ready to avoid them. Defensive driving is anticipating potential hazards, assuming other drivers will make errors, and maintaining a state of readiness to prevent accidents. Next up, what is the proper procedure for crossing a railroad track with a CMV? Slow down, look and listen, and proceed only when clear. Always approach with caution, scan both directions for trains, and never attempt to cross unless you are absolutely sure you can clear the tracks without stopping. Let's continue. You must check the tires to make sure they are properly inflated by using what? A tire pressure gauge. Tires must be checked with a proper gauge to ensure correct inflation pressure. A visual check is not sufficient. Moving on.